All right, welcome to your third day of chapter 3 and your last lesson for this week. And we're going to introduce yet another derivative rule. That's basically what's going to be happening for the next couple of lessons. And this is called the product rule. So get yourself ready for notes, and we're going to move on to chapter 3, section 2. So talking about the product rule, remember, product is a multiplication problem. So in this case, you'd have two functions multiplied by each other. So f times g. If I look at number 3 here, the numbering got off, that's all right. Our two functions that we have here are x e to the x, and we can rewrite that as x times e to the x if we like. And so it's nice to see, okay, here is our function f, here is our function g, just so that we can compare it to this formula. So what that is f times g is equal to f prime times g, so this is again multiplication right in here, plus f times g prime. So where f prime is again the derivative of f, so d dx of f, and g prime is d dx of g. So it's this longer, more complicated formula. So what I always recommend that you do with formulas that have sort of multiple things that you have to plug in, because this has 4 components, derivative of f, g, f, and the derivative of g, is like I'm doing here, is define what all of those are. So I usually will start by saying, okay, well, f of x is equal to something, and g of x is equal to something. As we've seen here by breaking up our product into these two parts, f of x is equal to x, g of x is equal to e to the x. Now, so that's half of our formula. Those are our f and g. Now we need to find f prime and g prime. So we want to take the derivative. So f prime here, x is an example of the power rule that we've seen several times before. The 1 comes down and subtracts. And so we end up with 1x to the 0, which is just 1. And as we've covered before, g prime, any derivative of e to the x is just itself. So now we have all 4 components, and I like to have them nicely organized like this. And then we just need to plug them in. So f times g prime, so these two multiply together first. So we get x times e to the x, and then f g prime, that was f g prime, I apologize, g prime f, not that because it's addition order really matters, but let's follow the formula the first time. F prime times g is 1 times e to the x, plus, now we've got f g prime, x times e to the x. So you can simplify that as e to the x plus x times e to the x if you want to factor it or do some other types of solving, which we'll come across later. But you can also just leave it like that. So again, we have f prime g plus f g prime. Now, one thing that I want to remember that we can do with derivatives is here it says find the equation of the tangent line to the function f of x equals x e to the x. So the same thing that we just saw up here in the previous problem at the point 0, 0. So if you remember, when we talk about derivatives, we're often talking about the slope of the tangent line. And so here, when you are asked to write the equation of a tangent line, whenever you are asked to write the equation of a line, in fact, I recommend that you start with point slope form, which would be y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This is our good friend. And this is now possible to do the tangent line because m is equal to f prime. And it will be at the point x equals 1, which is also just the derivative at x1. So let's talk about what that looks like here. So we know our x1 and y1, they're from here, the ordered pair, x1, y1, for our function. So we'll start with y minus 0, and this would be equal to the derivative. So it might be written as d dx of f of x at 0. So that'd be one way to write it, and x minus 0. So here is our slope, and we need to figure out what that is. Well, f prime of 0, if we remember this, f prime of 0, we're going to steal our formula there, is e to the x plus x times e to the x. So e to the 0 plus 0 times e to the 0. Again, we're just using the derivative from the problem above right here. E to the 0, like any power to the 0, is 1. Multiplying by 0 cancels out. And so the slope of the tangent line at that point is 1. Simplifying our zeros here, our final answer is y equals 1x, or y equals x. So another use of the derivative to write that full equation of the tangent line. Now, as we look at our next one, here we see that we have a product, differentiate, so find the derivative of f of x, and we have a product. We have these two things multiplied together. And you could absolutely use the product rule, but as we've seen here, the product rule is much more complicated than the previous ones we've learned. And so we are always going to ask ourselves if we can simplify first. And absolutely we can in this case. This isn't a fraction like our simplifying earlier, but we can FOIL. So if you see something that's a polynomial, you can use the power rule, but you might just have to FOIL first. That's just fine. So f of x, using FOIL, we'll get 6x squared minus 3x minus 4x cubed plus 2x squared. We have two like terms with the squareds, so f of x is equal to 8x squared minus 3x minus 4x to the third. I don't mind the fact that they're not in order. It's just fine. I'm going to jump to the power rule because now we just have our terms together. So I will take this, and it comes part of the coefficient, minus 1. 1 will drop down as part of the coefficient, and 3 drop down as part of the coefficient. So f prime of x, and this is where I do recommend you write things out so that you can make sure that you're not making any arithmetic mistakes in your head. This becomes 8 times 2, x to the 2 minus 1, minus 3, because remember the coefficients just sit in the front, 1x to the 1 minus 1, minus 4 times 3, x to the 3 minus 1. Again, make sure that the coefficient that came down is the same as the number that's being subtracted, not the number at the end of the subtraction. So this is now x to the first with a 2 multiplying into the coefficient. So 16x to the first minus 3x to the 0 minus 12x squared for f prime of x. And then our last little simplification is 16x minus 3 minus 12x squared. There you have it. So might look like a product. It might just be something you have to do a little simplifying first. Let me know if you have questions about any of these derivative rules in the comments or set up a Zoom meeting, and I look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day.